What is up, YouTube? It's me, Nelly, with a video here explaining some details about the Winter 2024 Vintage Cube that's going to be running on Magic Online from December 16th to January 22nd of 2025. Let's get into it. All right. Let's make these cards a little bigger. We've got the list here available for perusal. And I'm just going to scroll through this slowly, and I want to offer some of my thoughts for anyone who hasn't played Vintage Cube maybe since last winter, or anyone who's brand new. This format involves drafting out of a set of cards that we're going to see here, and includes all the most powerful cards in Magic, best mana, the best mana accelerants, the best design mistakes, for putting together your favorite 40-card hyper-powered decks. Okay. A lot of things are going to be familiar. You've seen these cards in deck lists and band lists, and you know they've touched our hearts so many times. I want to point out in white, Glimmerlens and Staff of the Storyteller. These are from somewhat recent. I believe they're 2023 Commander products, but they're kind of innocuous looking at first. Glimmerlens 1 and a white for an artifact equipment with 4 mirrored in, which means it comes in attached to a 2/2 rebel that it creates, and equips for 1 and a white, but also says whenever equipped creature and at least one other creature attack, you draw a card. That's pretty easy to put together, turns out. Just the one creature that comes with and one more creature attacking gets you a card every turn, and the equipment sticks around even if the rebel dies, so that's great. Similarly, Staff of the Storyteller, 1 and a white for an artifact that creates a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying when it enters. And whenever you create one or more creature tokens, you put a story counter on this. And for 1 and a white, or sorry, for just a white and tap it and remove a story counter, you draw a card. So again, another way to give white staying power, card drawing, card advantage over time that doesn't cost a lot of mana. And that is pretty easy to turn on. These cards have shown up a bunch in Canadian Highlander, and I think they're kind of cube mainstays that are somewhat relevant but important to look out for. You know, these are clues that white is open if these are tabling. While they might not be first picks, they are kind of like glue in your deck. I also want to shout out pre-war formalware from this year. So this has been in some cube lists already, but it's new to the format for Holiday Vintage Cube this time. So again, a Canadian Highlander, it's a classic or a staple at this point. 2 and a white for an equipment. When it enters, you return a creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield and attach the formalware to it. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 in vigilance, and it equips again for 3 mana. Put your skanky boots on. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Blue cards, I don't have any particular thing to note, but if you are new to Vintage Cube, there's this set of cards called the Power 9, and most of them are colorless, but the other ones are blue, and those ones are around. So it's easy to get kind of pushed into blue, you know, for really good cards. And the tools are there to support those really good cards. We've got the other, not just the really good, but the very quite good as well cards, you know, cheating on mana, cheating on card advantage, cheating on card selection, just all the great things that blue does. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but yeah, there's some messed up stuff in blue. It's here. There's a great article that came out today as well on the Mothership that you can read. Okay, going into black. Again, obviously, all these colors in the Vintage Cube, they're all doing the most representative things. Like the color pie is really well shown off. I want to talk about a new card to me that I hadn't seen before this cube list dropped. It's not the Unholy Annex and Ritual Chamber, although this is an important card because it's the demon kindred card of the sets. Like, it doesn't have the kindred type, but it cares about other demons. Helps you get the second portion of the Unholy Annex online, where you're damaging your opponent if you have a demon. So there's a bunch of demons in the set, including Shadow Grange Archfiend. Hadn't seen this card before. It's normally 6 and a black for an 8/4 demon. With when it enters, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures sacrificed this way. But it has Madness for 2 and a black and pay 8 life. So 3 mana for an 8/4 that makes them sacrifice a creature when it enters. I'm in. And so I did a little bit of work. I wanted to let you know what the on-color ways to discard a card are in this cube. And they're not very many. I believe it's exactly Liliana of the Veil, and then Bone Shards, Bitter Triumph, and Collective Brutality. Oh, scroll past that one. There we go. So this one, kill spell. This one, hand attack, / kill a creature / drain your opponent. And Bone Shards, again, a removal spell for a creature or planeswalker. Now, there are some cards that say target a player discards a card, notably Thoughtseize. So you can get creative with your, this one's not going to work, obviously, because you can't discard the demon. It does have a CMC of 7, but Thoughtseize could work. And there might be another targeted, you could get lucky on the Hymn to Turak if you target yourself. But that's not going to be plan A, obviously. Bone Shards, Collective Brutality, good ways to go there. Moving on to red, we've got Faithless Looting, just to tie this little segue together. There's a couple of different discarding cards in red. I believe also in blue in the cube to allow you to get your Madness of your Shattered Range Archfiend off. But going on, red actually pretty similar to blue in terms of how it feels this time around in the cube. The Mothership article does point out some cool things happening that are different in red, but overall I would say the majority of these cards are like straightforward what a red deck does. And if you aren't already familiar, red is often really great in cube, especially if you're playing ranked or if you're playing with your friends and everyone's kind of new on the lower like sort of skill and familiarity tiers. Red tends to be like the best deck at the cube table, so watch out for that. I will say since last winter, we've got Detective Phoenix, Detectives Phoenix, 2 and a red for a 2/2 flying haste enchantment creature with Bestow red and Collect Evidence 6, and the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and it's flying and haste, and you can cast it from your graveyard with its Bestow ability. This has become fairly popular in Canadian Highlander. A lot of power for not very much mana. We always like those cards. As well as new this year, Headliner Scarlet, another mainstay in Canadian Highlander. 3 and a red for a 3/3 legendary human warlock from the Clue expansion. It has haste. When it enters, creatures target player controls can't block, whether they have flying or not. And at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at and play that card this turn. So the classic 4-mana red enchantment that gets you access to an extra card every turn, except this one's also a 3/3 haste that stops them from blocking. Hellrider, eat your heart out. Other than that, pretty boilerplate stuff from red. There's like a Through the Breach and a sneak attack and some big creatures to help that out. But mostly the curve on red leans pretty low. And yeah, that's just the classic red thing. Same mostly in green. We've got Mana Accelerants. We've got big creatures. We've got synergistic big things. Oath of Druids. I want to specifically shout out Up the Beanstalk, because all 5 of the overlords are around. So along with your free spells, like if you have any Force of Will, Pyrokinesis type things that can trigger your Beanstalk, we now as well have the impending creatures. So Overlord of the Hauntwoods, specifically in green, but all 5 of these Duskmoor enchantment creatures are around. So you will get a Beanstalk trigger whether you cast it for its full mana value or its impending cost. So from Standard, if you haven't been playing Standard, check that out. I also want to shout out my boy Ursine Monstrosity from Duskmoor Commander, a 2 and a green 3/3 bear mutant with trample. And wait for it. At the beginning of combat on your turn, mill a card and choose an opponent at random. You're just going to have one opponent. Ursine Monstrosity attacks that player if able. Until end of turn, it gets +1/+1 and indestructible. Sorry, gets indestructible and +1/+1 for each card type among cards in your graveyard. So we'll go through it again slowly because this card's kind of complicated. It's a 3/3 for 3 bear with trample always. It has to attack every turn, but when it attacks, you mill a card, count the card types in your graveyard, and it gets +1/+1 for each of those and indestructible. So it's both a Delirium enabler because it mills you every turn, even the turn before it can attack, right? It doesn't have haste, but you can play it pre-combat and then get the mill. And then it also is a Delirium payoff because it's counting each type. So, it's the before and after Delirium. Delirium's 4 card types in your graveyard. This thing's stoked no matter how many card types are in your graveyard. Big fan of this card, so watch out for that. And then in gold, I didn't notice anything that's too out of the ordinary, although I haven't ever seen Alpha Deathclaw before, so that one's new with Fallout. Kind of like a Chaos Defiler from Warhammer 40,000, 4 black-green for a 6/6 Menace Trample Lizard Mutant with when it enters or becomes monstrous, destroy target permanent, and has Monstrous 4 for 7 mana. So a very straightforward kind of like Maelstrom Pulse strapped to a Crawworm there. Some old favorites. The lands, is just worth noting, you get the best mana in all of Magic when you're playing the cube. We've got fetch lands that can find either regular dual lands, slightly disappointing Ravnica shock lands, or the increasingly popular Murder Scarlet Manor Surveil lands, or even if you want, you can go for a Triome from Ikoria or Streets of New Capenna. There's also the fast mana, or the fast lands, as well as the Horizons from Modern Horizons, and some old busted lands like Gaia's Cradle, Tolarian Academy, Mishra's Workshop, Library of Alexandria, rounding it off with like a couple of these Kamigawa utility lands, and Shelldock Isle. This one's important to note. Your library starts with 40 cards in this format, and you get a free spell if you get down to 20. Well, it's free. You have to pay 2 mana, basically. But if either player gets down to 20, which happens a fair bit because, Ancestral Recall and whatnot, so watch out for that. In artifacts, again, some of the really popular, most punishing cards of all time you've seen. I do want to point out an interesting one. It's not new, but again, I did some homework for you. So if you're a fan of Coveted Jewel, the hits that I've noticed that you can get off of your 3 mana, assuming you are completely squeezed, you played this, you've got the three cards off of it in 3 mana, but you're worried your opponent's going to attack you. When you're deck building, you could think about including Toxic Deluge, okay? 2 and a black for -X to creatures. Delayed Blast Fireball, 1 red for 2-dimensional creatures. Or maybe Time Walk, 1 and a blue, take another turn. Well, they don't get an attack step if they don't have a turn. And then we've got some huge colorless outlets for Channel or Sneak Attack, or, well, Scion of Draco is kind of hanging out here, even though you're going to play Domain and cast this thing for 2. Okay, that's my cube video, everybody. I'm looking forward to playing this one. The Holiday Cube's always kind of a favorite. Usually, players are back home for Christmas sometimes, so every now and then you can get a set of a few people together over Moto. These days, it's usually Discord, but with the added free time, oftentimes there's a chance to get your pals together and show off each other's draft picks and, have fun playing Magic Online. Okay, I've been Nelly. Shout out to Daybreak Games for the creator program and letting me have the resources to make this video. And have fun out there playing. Take it easy.